Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some race reaction to the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix. What do we reckon? How are we doing this fine evening here in the UK? Don't forget, of course, to vote on how you rate the race. Great, good, average, okay or bad. But let me know in chat as well what you think of that one. We were talking yesterday, weren't we, about whether these mandatory stops in air, they're not really mandatory stops, but they sort of were, weren't they, with the maximum stint lengths, how they would go. I think that's a good race. I would rate that good if I was voting. I can't vote on the poll, but I would vote for good. I wouldn't put it in the bracket of great. I think a lot of pit stops don't always mean fantastic action, but because we had so many pit stops, certainly in that first sort of half of the race, we did see quite a bit of action because, of course, drivers were out of position, having to come back through the field. There's tyre offsets as well, so it made it interesting. But I don't think there's going to be any much push for a mandatory three stopper in future, if we're going to call it that. It's not really a mandatory three stopper. It's the maximum tyre stint length. I'm not sure that was something that I thoroughly enjoyed, but it was good to see cars dropping out of position, coming back through, tyre offsets and things, people on new tyres. I mean, at the start, so many drivers on used tyres, which we don't often see, do we, in Formula One? It's usually a brand spanking new set. So yeah, it was a good race. I'm not complaining about it. I enjoyed it. Went a little bit quiet towards the end until the McLarens got a little bit closer together. But yeah, Max Verstappen today, unstoppable. And that is, of course, where we will start. Max Verstappen, triple world champion yesterday. Been coming for a while. We knew that one. So if you didn't catch my reaction yesterday, congratulations to Max. Absolutely phenomenal this season. Pretty much unstoppable. What, 3? Yeah, 2 for Perez, 1 for Sainz. 3 races he's failed to win. I mean, that is as close to unstoppable as we see in Formula One, isn't it? So unbelievable. Great season from him. In my notes for him for the race, maybe he sums up his race quite nicely. Pitted end of lap 17 for used mediums, having started on used mediums. Then pitted for new hards on lap 24. Then lapped Perez on lap 46. Ouch. And then pitted again on 51 for new mediums, and then had a slow 4-second pit stop with the front left a little slow off. That was basically Max Verstappen's race. It was close at the end. 4.8 seconds. I think he said over the radio it was a little bit close for comfort towards the end of the race, but I think whilst 4.8 seconds look close, I do feel like there's some pace management going on towards the end of that race as well. I know he went for fastest lap, but I think he wasn't. I think if he wanted to be flat out today, he could have been, but it was a hot race. It was humid. A lot of drivers not very comfortable. We had drivers withdrawing from the race. Logan Sargent, of course, not very well. Some drivers afterwards apparently not very well as well. Awful racing conditions for them, but you've got to manage that, and that's what he did today. So I didn't think he was going to disappear, but he as good as, didn't he? Really, we didn't see a lot of him. So it's not that I don't want to talk about Max Verstappen, but we talked about him a lot yesterday, and there's only so many ways I could say phenomenal, excellent, superb, practically unbeatable. It's just how he's been this season, and he looks good for next year already, you could argue. But 14 wins on the board. I'm glad that 13's gone. I'm a little bit superstitious about that number. I know it's stupid, but I am. So glad that 13's gone. He's on 14. I think he's got a great shot now. 2 wins between now and the end of the season, breaking his own record of most wins. So fantastic stuff from Max again this weekend. Really impressed with him. So I just got a notification. Yeah, sorry, nothing. I thought it was an FIA notification, but it's not. So yeah, great stuff from Max. And like I say, Sergio Perez today, I like to go team by team and driver by driver, but Sergio Perez, I mean, what a shockingly bad weekend again, just sort of following on from Japan. Story of Perez's race, if you want it, really is pit lane starts, 5-second penalty, 5-second penalty, 5-second penalty. 15 seconds worth of time penalties for track limits. He was told over the radio as well, wasn't he? You know, stop it now, mate. This is affecting our performance. And as Karun Chandhok, I think it was, said in commentary on Sky, it's all right running off track and track limits, 0.5 of a second you're gaining, and then you're costing your team 5 seconds. It's crazy, really. So I know track limits aren't easy for some drivers. I will always throw the argument that there were a lot more drivers who didn't get penalties today than did, so clearly staying within track limits is possible. But again, I think the track limit system's a weird one anyway, full stop. I'm not putting this on Perez. This is just general. We had, for example, I think there was a driver, at least 1 or 2 drivers who got a track limit warning and a black and white flag after they were sort of shoved off by another driver, and that counts as a track limits thing, which seems a little bit crazy, but it's all or nothing with track limits, isn't it? So, but Perez today, really not great. The only good point I can make for Perez today is that he, in the end, got 1 point, and because Lewis Hamilton didn't finish, he extends his lead in second place in the Drivers' Championship. And you could probably hear my voice, I'm really clutching at straws with that one, because I think Perez's last 2 Grand Prix, including this weekend, of course, have just been it's just not good enough. I know he's not totally comfortable in the car, he said. Things aren't working for him, things aren't clicking, but, you know, that car in the hands of Verstappen has cruised to a Drivers' Championship. They're cruising in the Constructors. He's got to be doing better than that. And, it's not all the car. Of course it isn't. The best drivers make the difference in those cars, but Perez is better than he's showing at the moment. I'm absolutely adamant of that, and it's not really acceptable. So 2 really sloppy weekends that could have cost him dear in that fight for second place. But, you know, Perez, what can you say, 15 seconds worth of time penalty. It could have been worse as well. Of course, he started from the pit lane because the team got penalised for working on the car under part Ferme conditions without the approval of the technical delegate and alleged use of more than 2 cars available for use at any time any one time during a competition. Also took a whole new power unit. That's similar to what happened to Logan Sargent in Japan. It was last weekend, wasn't it? Last time? Yeah, in Japan. The same thing happened to him, and he got a 10-second time penalty for the race as well, which Sergio Perez didn't get. I have read the explanation. Honestly, give it a read, see what you can make of it. It sounds a little bit like FIA mumbo. I can't really work it out. It's just all muddled up, and it's whatever. I think the crux of it, correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially that they've taken the car apart, and at no point did they effectively have two cars in play for Perez, so they've put it back together, and that's how they've kind of got away without the penalty there. So they've not breached the rules, but I think there is some wording somewhere that says that they've not sort of stuck to the spirit of the rules. But I mean, you know, what would it have changed in his race? He would have ended up Stroll might have got a point. It's about all it would have ended in the end, so not a big deal. Police it fairly, FIA, but they've got around the rules, and that's fine. Grey areas, loopholes. We had this with the rejoining in Japan, didn't we? After he retired, people had to kick off about that. But I'm reading the reaction to it, and you think, an F1 team exploiting a loophole in the regulations. Somebody must notify the church elders. It's a disgrace. Teams do it all the time, and it's not just Red Bull. So yeah, could have been worse for him today, I suppose, is the argument there. But certainly 10th place, even from the pit lane. I mean, 15 seconds in that race in penalties. 5 seconds puts him ahead of Zhou. 10 seconds, so he puts him 8th without all of that. Not good enough, Checo. And I'm a big Checo defender before anyone starts with the usual stuff about Mexico. It does annoy me, but yeah, it's polar opposites again this weekend. Verstappen, absolutely brilliant. I think perfect today with pole, of course, on Saturday, but then win and fastest lap. Didn't quite lead every lap. Alex Albon got a few, believe it or not, but yeah, didn't quite lead every lap. Sergio Perez, shocker again. So, not great. I'm going to keep saying not good enough, Checo, because it's not. I am going to fly through the order, by the way, as I often do in these, because I want to get through them as quickly as possible. Because I've not got a huge number of notes, actually, despite everything going on, because I rapidly realised when I was making my race notes that it's a lot of pitted this lap, pitted that lap, pitted the other lap, because there you go. McLaren, 2nd and 3rd. Got a little prediction for you. Okay, it feels a bit bold. They are now 11 points behind Aston Martin in 4th place in the Constructors' Championship. If they carry on as they are, I think they have a shot of getting Ferrari in P3. I'm cautious on it in some ways because Ferrari had sort of turned up to some weekends really rapid and other weekends not so much. So a couple of really strong results for Ferrari, and that goes out the window straight away. But on current form, the pace they've got, the results they're delivering, they've got a shot at P3. I'm not convinced they will, but I thought, do you know what? I'm going to come into the stream with a bit of a bold prediction. It is about 80 points. It's a bit less than that. Is it 79 points, something like that? So it is possible, but you might argue unlikely. I just look at the points they're scoring and how well they're doing, particularly, I mean, Piastri this season. I said it yesterday. One of the best rookie seasons we've seen in recent history. John T messaged me, actually. Sorry to put him on the spot with this one if he's listening. But he did say to me that he thinks this is one of the best rookie seasons we've seen in the last sort of 15 years of F1. One of the best. And I sort of tend to agree. I think Piastri's been excellent this year, and he's so strong out there. Won yesterday, 2nd place today. Took advantage of the incident at turn 1 between the Mercedes. We'll talk about them next up after McLaren. Solid pace, really, pretty much all Grand Prix. Again, I'm not sure how much management Verstappen was doing, but Piastri was. I took an example that he was about not all that far off Verstappen's pace on about lap 8. I think I put it down as. So sort of through the race. There was some laps where he was considerably slower, but most of the time he wasn't a million miles away. So well done to Piastri there. I think it just shows how good that car is now and how good he's doing this year. Slow first stop as well at 3.1 seconds, by the way, and did come out behind the battling Magnussen and Lawson. I think that happened a bit later as well, coming out behind someone, so maybe lost some time there. But again, I think, maybe there's a couple, maybe 3 seconds there that he could have gained through the stops with traffic, but I still think Verstappen had that covered if he needed to. But it's testament to how good he's doing out there and how well McLaren have turned things around. It's still mind-boggling to me. Lando Norris P3, a second consecutive double podium. I could have taken a pee out of myself. They've got McLaren's first double podium since last time. Got that wrong last time out, didn't I? Pitted first time at the end of lap 13 for the used mediums, so it was 2 stints on used mediums for Norris initially. Did jump Alonso during the second stops, which may have proved to be crucial, but Alonso made a mistake a little bit later on that probably cost him any shot at a podium anyway. But it was ultimately at that point the net battle for the final step on the podium. Possible 1.8 second stop. Lando did say in his interview afterwards they got a 1.8 second stop. I've not seen if it's been officially confirmed. Let me know if it has. But that is a bloody rapid stop if they pulled off a 1.8. So congrats to McLaren on that one. That's so impressive. I've said before, if you go to a garage and they did that to your car, you'd soon take it back and go, no. Now you could do that again a bit slower, please. Quicker in the run up to the final stops and probably... arguably a little bit quicker in the final few laps, although the final lap of the race, Piastri 25.271, Norris 25.298, a little bit slower actually, so maybe Piastri had him covered in that one. Was told to hold position, which I think was the right call. They were a little bit concerned about what Russell was going to do, but when you're in that battle with Aston Martin... maybe playing it too safe. I suppose they could have gone for it. 28 seconds back to Russell. They could have let them fight, but you'd already seen two teammates tangle. The last thing McLaren wanted is two teammates tangling again. They were pretty close to it in Monza, weren't they? So I think that was about the right call, but I kind of get Norris's frustration. He did question it over the radio, but I think listening to that team radio, it sounded more like he was being cheeky Lando Norris, if you follow what I mean, the way he was saying it. Kind of like, why do you want me to do that? I think I'm quicker. I think he was just trying to tease the team a little bit into letting him have a race, but it was nice and close between the two of them. Both drivers, brilliant performances. Lando coming from 10th place as well. I mean, that's fantastic. So well done to McLaren. Like I said, that's my little prediction. You might think I'm crackers, but I think they've got a good shot at P3. They might need Ferrari to have some issues on a Sunday with strategy or something. I know that's unlikely. He says, looking to a camera that doesn't exist and pulling a face. Yeah, Ferrari might make a few mistakes. McLaren might make mistakes, but really impressed with them today, once again, from McLaren. Just a great weekend from them. Mercedes. Oh, dear. First of all, George Russell, I think deserves... I think he was second in the driver of the day vote. I think that's almost correct. I don't like it when drivers make contact, but we'll get to that in a second. But I think to drop to last place... stopping for repairs. I know the safety car was out, which allowed him to catch the pack, and then all of this weirdness with the tyres. I think he did a really good job to get back to P4, so I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But also, his turn 6 moves today. We saw one yesterday with that really late braking move. Was superb yesterday, and he was great again today at turn 6. Kaori says, George Russell is my driver of the day. I don't see why not, really. I think he deserves a real shout-out for that one. But really... we could talk about, I'll go through the notes for Russell specifically first before we get to the incident. Back up to P6 by lap 12. Obviously, a few people pitting, of course. Pitted for used stops on lap 50 for final stop. I think that's worth a go. I think you've had the race you've had. You've come through the field. You've got some tyres with a bit of life in them. You want to chase down the McLarens on harder tyres. Logically... the soft tyre you'd expect to be considerably quicker than the hard, but it wasn't. And I think as soon as George realised that wasn't going to happen and the tyres were going to go off, he backed off and looked after the car to get it to the end and make sure he was looking after tyres and could fend off Leclerc if he got close in the end. But I do think it was worth a gamble for George to do that. But Karun Chandok says something in commentary that he thinks George might have run off track as well. If that's the case, then no point pushing then because you're not going to close the gap. So, like I say, third time I'll say it in about a minute, but I do think that's worth a shot when you are P4. You're probably going to fend off the Ferrari anyway. You've got to make a stop. 7 laps to go. Why put the hard or medium on when you can have a go on the soft and just try and put McLaren under pressure. McLaren were under pressure because they said they were concerned about Russell, what Russell was going to do and whether or not he put the softs on to go to the end and give them a fight. So I think that's the right call. Didn't work out. Another day it does. So, but the fact he didn't set a fastest lap on it, I think says quite a bit. Or the fastest lap on it says quite a bit. So that incident then, which I'm guessing is why a few people might be here. My thoughts on that. I said at the time, and I said it to John T, quite happy to admit to this. I said that in that situation, George Russell has three options. He can either A, slam on the brakes, which is incredibly dangerous in turn 1 on the first lap of a race. 2, hit Verstappen. Or 3, evaporate. They were George Russell's three options, and he's not going to do any three of them, any one of those three, because again, slamming on the brakes, you're going to cause a big accident behind. Hitting Verstappen, you're going to get a lot of stick for that, and you're going to get penalties, and it's not, maybe more preferable to hitting your teammates, but you don't want to be hitting anybody, and he can't physically evaporate. So that is very similar to what we saw yesterday with Ocon, Hülkenberg, and Perez. Similar, in my argument, similar to Raikkonen, Verstappen and Vettel in Singapore. The driver in the middle can't just disappear. He's squeezed in there. So I don't put... I've seen people say it's a 50-50. I've seen people say it's a racing incident. I said to Jonty, I think a lot of people will say that is. For me, that's on Hamilton. And you can get pissy with me all you like. I don't mind. That's fine. I think that's on Hamilton, and I can confirm that's on Hamilton because Hamilton has taken full responsibility. And when a driver turns around and says, hey, that's on me, the argument's ended. A lot of people will disagree with that. They'll say, no, we can still have an opinion. Of course you can. We can still debate it. But for me, as soon as a driver comes out and says that, it doesn't matter what we think. And his tweets, by the way, he did say in an interview are similar, but he did say in a tweet, I've watched the replay and it was 100% my fault and I take full responsibilities. Apologies to my team and to George. George can't evaporate. He can't. So I'm not having a go at Hamilton. For me, you see that all the time, those sort of similar incidents in the midfield, don't you? When drivers are coming around the outside, if someone's on the inside, someone gets pinched or someone understeers wide and there's contact. They often go down as racing incidents, and the stewards obviously decided it was because I don't think they even looked at it. But that's on Hamilton. I don't like saying 100% because... It's a bit like the phrase road traffic accident. I get it. This is from my grandma. There's always somebody to blame. And there's always an element of doubt in everything. So I don't like to say 100%, but I think that's as close to 100% as you're ever going to get. And Lewis takes responsibility. So I did wonder before going to the stream, I thought I'm probably going to get stick from Ruby if she's here for saying that one. She's probably really mad at me now. But Ruby, massive Lewis Hamilton fan. But at the same time, when your driver or a driver turns around and says, that's it, I hit my teammate, it's my fault. There you go. It felt controversial at the time, but I think because he's come out and taken that blame, and because of the way it was all handled by Mercedes and that, it doesn't actually, maybe I'm wrong, it doesn't actually feel all that controversial anymore. It did at the time. You thought this is going to be big, this is going to be really controversial, but I've seen, I don't want to get into this, because I just feel like I'm going on a mainstream media moan. But some of the Sky pundits have been, in certain corners of a certain fan base, have been pushing the old, well, Lewis was on the soft tyres, so maybe George should have understood that and should have been told to stay behind Verstappen and let Lewis have the position to have a go. And whilst in an ideal world, you probably go, yeah, that's fair enough. Where's George making that decision on the run to turn 1? Is he to back off and let Lewis go and leave himself vulnerable to the cars behind? Is he to wait until Lewis is alongside, then slam the brakes on and cause possibly an even bigger accident? That's not the sort... It's such a... I just don't buy into that argument. If Hamilton's quicker, he'll get through on a soft tyre, or George can keep the position, Lewis can go, whoa, this is a bit risky around the outside, I'll just tuck in and we'll stay where we are. And then George could be told to let Hamilton through on the straight a lap later and let him go and have a go on those tyres. It feels sometimes like certain outlets like to try and give excuse, and it's not just Lewis Hamilton, by the way, before anyone starts. Certain outlets like to give excuses for drivers that they wouldn't give to other drivers. Nobody is making that argument if, I don't know, let's pick two drivers random. What we got here? If Ocon does that to Gasly, nobody's making excuses for Ocon. But when it comes to Sky, when it comes to Lewis Hamilton, and when other media, I think Dutch media might do the same for Verstappen, etc., etc. Spanish media might do it for Alonso. But there's no need to make excuses. He's made a mistake. It's his error. He turned in. He's held his hands up. That's the end of debate. But it's why I've stopped watching much Sky coverage, to be honest with you. I just find it a little bit ridiculous sometimes that there's always an excuse for some drivers and not for others. But again, that's not a dig at Hamilton. That's a dig at other media outlets. It's not just Sky. There are many that do it. But yeah, it's warm in here today. Sorry if I'm a little bit blur today. It's very hot in my office for summer. It's for the UK in October. It's quite warm. It's not hot. We're not talking Qatar levels. I'm not withdrawing from the stream because I'm feeling a bit funny or feeling unwell or anything like that. But it's quite warm. So if I sound a little bit lost today, it's that'll be why it is. But yeah, that's just my stance on that. I'm not having a go at Hamilton for that. He's taken responsibility. I applaud him for that. Actually, like he did with Piastri as well, didn't he, in Monza? Came across and said to him afterwards, sorry. I think there was a moment where he crossed the track, which I don't know if the stewards looked at it. If you'd like me to have a quick check, I will do, just on the FIA website and see if they have. I mean, I should have that open anyway, because who knows how many time penalties we're going to get for track limits if there are any to be investigated. I think they're all in. I think Sergio Perez was the last one after the race had finished. Let me just have a look. Summons car 40. So, okay, Lewis Hamilton has been summoned to the stewards for crossing the track. He crossed the track when the track was live. And I think officially it'll be between traffic as well. It's not like he stopped at a zebra crossing and George Russell. It's not quite that dramatic, but I think Russell was the last car and was still coming round, and Hamilton's crossed the track while he's doing that, and you're not supposed to do that. So, and I think you're supposed to get on a scooter and get taken back round to the pit. So, alleged breach of Article 26.7b of the sporting regulations, crossing the track by the car of driver 44 at 20:06. He's been summoned to be there at 22:05 local time. So I believe that is... Isn't that now? Hasn't he already? He should have already been. So there might be something for Hamilton, but I suspect that if anything is going to be a reprimand. They tend to be reprimands with those sorts of things. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that a little bit later. But let me know in chat. What do you think of that first corner incident before we move on to the other teams? Now we've done the top three. Do you think Hamilton to blame? So Hamilton, if you think it's Hamilton. Russell, if you think it's Russell. Racing incident, if you think it's a racing incident. Don't care if you don't care. A lot of people won't care. Yes, I agree, James. I was going to come on to that later. TV direction at times today was absolutely horrendous. And yesterday as well. But I will give TV direction, just while you're getting your answers in, I will give TV direction some credit. At least the graphics were saying driver X has to pit by the end of lap Y on these tires. At least we were getting something to kind of explain what was going on for more casual viewers and that, who maybe didn't, like me, have the Pirelli thing open so I could work out who was doing what on what tyre. It was all very, very confusing. But yeah, that's something I'll give them for the graphics. But the TV direction in general wasn't good all weekend, to be fair. So yeah, rare graphics W, I agree. So I'm not going to shout out names. We'll do names later. I'll do shout outs when we do the driver of the day later. But the vast majority, Hamilton, Lewis squeezed George, Hamilton, mostly. Racing incident, Hamilton. Nick Service says don't care. Hamilton. I think you see what we're going here. Hamilton, he admitted it. Exactly, Steph. It's not even a controversial argument, is it, when a driver admits it? Yeah, so a few racing incidents. I've not seen anybody say Russell, which, whilst everyone's entitled to their own opinion, I'm kind of glad about, to be fair. So that was it on Mercedes. Really, I was expected to have to talk for hours about that and give my view on it and get a lot of backlash on it. But actually, I think Hamilton saved me from that in a way. So thanks, Lewis. I appreciate that one. So not obviously nothing else to add on Hamilton's race. But again, just to reiterate, to go back to a positive, really good recovery from Russell to get back to P4. He must have had a damaged car as well to an extent. Obviously, he was still rapid, so it wasn't trashed as we've seen before. But it was still a very... there would have been some damage somewhere, so it's a really good drive. Yes, I did. Yeah, Toto getting in touch remotely, didn't he? So Toto's not here this week. I think you hear his voice over the radio, like, oh my god. Either Toto's got a connection from somewhere, or I'm just hearing Toto Wolff in my head, and I've got some kind of really crazy problem, and maybe he's my lord or something. I don't know. He is not my god. Let me be clear about that one. But yeah, just hearing Toto Wolff's voice everywhere I go. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc P5, Carlos Sainz didn't start, bless him. We'll do Sainz first, this is easy. Did not start due to a fuel system issue on his car. Carlos will not take part in the Qatar Grand Prix, was the official line from Ferrari. So such a shame. He was down in 12th place. Was quite looking forward to seeing him and Perez come through the field today, and it obviously not necessarily with Sainz. So unlucky, it happens. But Is that the second time this? I think that's the second time this season it was Sainz. I'm probably making that up. I probably am making it up. I own my stats. I got it wrong last time. Trying to make out that McLaren hadn't had a double podium for decades, or something crazy like that. Let's have a look. It feels like it's, unless I'm thinking it's just happened recently because of others, but no, it's not. It hasn't happened to before, so that's just me. It might be another race or last season I'm thinking of, but yeah, shame for Carlos that. Charles Leclerc, I have 0 notes on him, quite frankly, so I'm going to have to do this a little bit off the top of my head. Did start on those used mediums. Obviously got all his stops in within the rules. I think he stayed within track limits through the race, which is better than a number of them did out there. 4.8 behind Russell. Did ask them to have a look at Russell, ask his mechanics to have a look at Russell after the race, because he felt he'd gone over track limits a few times on the last lap or two, but it was 4.8 behind. Probably not going to get him anyway. Probably just trying there. 4.8 is obviously less than 5, looking for a penalty and might get a cheeky 4th place, but I've got nothing on Charles because I don't think really Ferrari seemed to do a lot this weekend, and I possibly jinxed them on Thursday by giving Charles a shot at maybe a podium this weekend, but didn't come to anything. So I can't really say much on Charles other than decent race to come home in 5th place. It is a case of started 5th, finished 5th, which given that there were one retirement ahead of him, one driver got knocked out, one driver fell to the back of the grid as well. That's probably not an amazing result. In fact, the team say a tricky race in Qatar is what they've said officially. So I don't know if Charles has said anything. P5 for Sunday's race. We've got the sprint quali and sprint race tomorrow. Let's keep pushing was his last tweet. That was yesterday, obviously just before the sprint. So yeah, nothing on Charles. If you've got anything you want me to say, Nick says Charles's pace was a little poor too. Should have beaten Russell. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. When you've got a couple of cars ahead of you, one gets knocked to the back of the grid and one retires, and you start 5th and finish 5th, you're going to be disappointed, aren't you? Really. Disappointing for Ferrari generally, but it's points on the board. But again, when you look at the way they bounce back and then they fall away, then they bounce back and fall away. This is why I think McLaren have got a shot at taking them on for 3rd. They've at least got to look over their shoulder. So apologies Ferrari fans, including myself. I've not got any notes and not much to say. I'll see if I get any press release or quotes or any tweets later I can read out about Ferrari, so we'll come back to them a little bit later. But I think for Sainz, it's a shame. For Leclerc, probably. He was considerably quicker than George towards the end, getting on for a second a lap. So he was chasing down 4th place, but we know that George was also looking after his tyres because he was concerned about the softs. So maybe George would have a bit more pace to pull away if the battle had started. But it was a fairly comfortable 5th as well. Alonso was 10 seconds back, so he wasn't threatened. So a lonely race. That's how I'll sum it up for Charles Leclerc and Ferrari there. So, Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, P6 for him. I think a little bit lucky not to get a penalty is what I've written for Fernando Alonso. I just want to double check he didn't get one. You know what I'm like. Let's have a look. Car 14, isn't he? I felt he went off track at turn 2 into the gravel and then into the escape road. In fact, I think we actually have a decision here. Oh, he's got a reprimand. Okay, fair enough. So he went off track at turn 3, it was officially. Went across the gravel, went across the escape road and rejoined, but rejoined right in front of Leclerc. It was quite a... I would say that's a dangerous rejoin. The stewards agree. They've said leaving the track and rejoining unsafely in turn 3. And they've given him a reprimand. They've said Alonso went off track at turn 2, continued on the runoff and rejoined at high speed right in front of Leclerc. Although Leclerc did not have to take any evasive measures. Okay. The stewards determined that given the speed and the angle in which car 14, Alonso, came back on track, he rejoined in an unsafe manner. They like to hand reprimands out, don't they? It used to be post-race. It was, if you were going to get a penalty post-race, you were probably going to get a 5-second penalty, but they seem to be quite keen to just throw reprimands out. Now, we had it with Verstappen, didn't we, the other week, when you'd normally expect a penalty and they were giving reprimands and dressing up as penalties. So I'm surprised they've not taken firmer action on that. 5-second penalty, by the way, would have made no difference to his race. Maybe that's why they thought about it. I think he got a penalty point as well. So Maybe that's what they're thinking on that one. But I'm surprised that wasn't more, because that for me, he didn't get a penalty point. Oh wow, he didn't. Sorry. Yeah, for me that's rejoining unsafely. So I'm giving that as a penalty for Fernando, but they didn't. So there you go. Bit of an interesting race for him. Big snap at turn 4 as well on lap 6 because of wind. I assume he meant the wind in the air, not the curry he had the night before. Off track and lost about a second, they reckoned. I've written here, in just the way only I can, hot arse, as in his seat. Wanted some water poured down there. The team did not do that. We talked about the incident where he sort of snapped and it looked like he touched the grass and off he went. And I just put potential unsafe rejoin, looked like it. So it wouldn't have made any odds to his race, but I'm just surprised that's not a penalty. Lance Stroll told to let Alonso through ASAP on lap 17 because he's not quick enough. No, because he's on different strategy. 5-second time penalty for track limits, followed by another 5-second time penalty for track limits. Story of the day for the likes of Perez and Stroll, and I think Gasly as well. So lots of 5-second time penalties out there for people. But yeah, curious weekend for Lance Stroll, really. I don't want to say anymore. I said it yesterday about him. He needs to. Lance Stroll needs the end of the season, is what Lance Stroll needs, and he needs to disappear for the winter, and he needs one of those. Drivers have had them. We've seen drivers have them recently where they go away for the winter and kind of just completely clear their heads. And I think that's what he needs. Just a big reset over the winter. Just have a quick drink, sorry. Have you seen photos of Alonso? We haven't, says John Jones. If you're talking to me, John, what do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that. If you don't think he rejoined unsafely, that's fine, but I completely disagree. He clearly rejoined unsafely. The stewards agree. I just thought it'd be more of a penalty. I don't know if you might be talking to somebody else. That's why I'm just asking you, John. Let me know. I'll keep an eye out for you in chat. Yeah. Oh no, I'm with the hot ass comment. Look. I'm not going to judge Alonso on his behind. Some people may feel that he does have, but all I'm saying is that he had a very hot seat, and that affected him in the race. And he wanted some water poured down there, and it didn't work out. And that's I think they said in commentary they used to do that many years ago. They pour water over drivers in the heat when they had refueling and a bit more time to do it. But that could have been chaotic and quite amusing, but they didn't in the end. But yeah, just on Lance Stroll. Like I say, I think he just needs to go away for the winter, clear his head, get himself sorted somewhere. But I said it yesterday. I think he was a bit more chatty in some interviews that he did, and apparently he was quite nice to a few to a few fans when he left, and some kids as well. I think he probably calmed down a lot after yesterday, but he looked to me in that first interview he did like a guy who was done with F1. That's just for anyone who didn't catch the stream yesterday. It looked like he was done with it. He might not be, but a good break in the winter, clear his head, maybe go somewhere and just switch everything off, brain as well, completely reset. That's what I would do. But I'm still confident he'll be back next season, whatever happens. But I think his longer term future might be in doubt. But there's been reports lately. I mean, these are big rumors, by the way. These are not. If you're rating them on I don't know what scale you want to rate them on, but they're probably lemon and herb. Do you know what I mean? On a Nando scale, lemon and herb. Just not really big rumours at all, but they're not reliable rumours at all. But talk of Lawrence Stroll maybe wanting to disappear, and I don't think that's true at all. And we've had it with, of course, with Audi as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later if we get a chance. But yeah, that's my stance on Stroll. See what happens. Let's get through these. And Alpine, Ocon 7th, Gasly in 12th. How's the sum up Alpine's race? I think decent from Ocon. Really good stuff. Pitting end of lap 10 for that's what it says. That's used mediums, isn't it? Yeah, used mediums. I thought maybe a bit early and might commit him to 4 stops. It didn't in the end. Only committed him to 3, so that worked out for him. Some really good points and a good weekend actually for Esteban overall, apart from yesterday in the sprint. I say apart from yesterday in the sprint like that because I tend to look at qualifying the race more than I do the sprint, because it's not really a big deal. It's points, so it matters to some people, but yeah, not really. And Pierre Gasly, I guess kind of what's the phrase I want to use? So maybe a question of what could have been in some ways for him, because he was up there challenging for points. Defending against Russell, who was on the outside of turn 1 around lap 22. Didn't leave much room on the exit. Could have left more room, but Stewart didn't have a look at it, so it doesn't really matter. Slow second stop at 4.0 seconds, so exactly 4 seconds. 5-second time penalty for track limits, followed by another 5-second time penalty for track limits. It was off track, trying to pass Stroll for the final point. Moved completely off the track. Should have given it back straight away. Didn't. There was plenty of space there, so we didn't need to be out on the track, out on the runoff area. Told to give it back and did, but also lost out to Sergio Perez at the same time. Got back ahead of Perez a couple of laps later. Made the move, but again completed it off track. And another 5-second time penalty for track limits. So that's 1, 2... That's at least 3 for Gasly. So another 15 seconds. He's right up there in the points again. So that's kind of one of those... Track limits have hurt him today, but there are a lot of drivers who didn't get any warnings for track limits, so it's not a track limits issue, it's a Gasly issue for getting those penalties, a bit like Perez in that regard. So I feel like he could have had a better result than he ended up with, so frustrating for him. But it's, as a team, they're going to be happy with 7th, but I do feel like Gasly was on for points today. But it worked out quite nicely for some others, but we'll get there in just a second. So, weird one. I mean, I said I kind of touched on it earlier. I wanted to touch on it again now, but the track limits thing, you sort of have these rules. You go all 4 wheels over, your lap time's deleted, you get a warning, and there are incidents. And this is why I wanted to do it with Gasly, because although he maybe wasn't on the receiving end, he did deliver a few off-track moments to other people and involved in fights with like Lance Stroll, for example. You know, Gasly, not Gasly, sorry, I've got that wrong. Gasly shoving Russell off track, not shoving, but not leaving a huge amount of space, and that forces Russell over the white line. Should Russell be getting a warning for that? I'm not convinced, but the problem is that's where we're going to need, dare I say, technology to police track limits. But then you're still going to have somebody having to say, yeah, but that's not Russell's fault, and it feels a little bit. It's right that we're policing the way we are, and that you know, over the white line is a warning, or it's a strike and then a black and white flag and a penalty, but. There are some, like when a driver today, Fernando Alonso would have got warnings for his snap at turn 4 because of the wind or losing it. I know they're his mistakes, but he's not going out there to gain an advantage, is he? But I'm not sure what the answer is other than technology to come in and try and save it. So that's a conversation for another day, but just something I wanted to float there. So I'll be interested to see what you think later on in the comments as well, if you're listening, what you would say for track limit solutions. But the other thing I want to say on track limits just very quickly, there was some talk yesterday, I think Nico Rosberg said to Nicholas Tombassis of the FIA, what are we going to do to get on top of these track limit situations, because it's getting embarrassing for Formula One. I get his point and what he's trying to say, and I know that Nico Rosberg likes to stir the pot a little bit from time to time, you might have noticed. But I don't really see it as an issue. A lot of people get peed off with them, but I don't see it as an issue. Don't go out there. If you keep enough of a wheel on the correct side of the white line, you won't get penalised. So it's on the drivers. They were all doing it in Austria. They were all doing it today, those that were doing it. So it's their fault. But also, I would say, thinking about it off the top of my head, track limits haven't been a major issue really since Austria. That was round 9. We've just had round 17. Are they really a problem the way they're policed? Just something to think about. I just don't think the FIA needs to panic about getting on top of them overall, but I just sometimes think some of the decisions, it's a bit like the penalty points they revised over the winter. Sort of, they needed a little tweak because some people were getting dangerous driving penalty points for things that weren't dangerous driving, that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly, Sean, put a wall there, strip of gravel, natural barriers, strip of gravel there, strip of grass. I know they've got to think about motorbikes and other series, but you know, that stops them straight away. If they're going to lose time, they won't be there. It's as simple as that. So it's the answer. But is there a technological one, I'm thinking? Is there a way that strips can be put in there that detect it? I know we've got GPS and things, but there's got to be some more technology. But that's a conversation for another day. But good day for Ocon, not so great for Gasly. Could have been better, but penalties really hampering him, but that's on him. Valtteri Bottas, excellent for Alfa Romeo. 8th place for him. 9th place for Zhou Guanyu from 19th on the grid, might I add. Bottas went 9th to 8th. Zhou Guanyu went 19th to 9th. That's a really impressive day from Zhou, driving very, very nicely indeed. And most critically, for Alfa Romeo, that moves them ahead of Haas. I did think actually Pascal. I was thinking Pascal will be happy with that one. Pascal in chat there, big Alfa Romeo fan or Sauber fan. So I was sort of thinking Pascal will be happy tonight. So great performance from both drivers. Great result. Moves them ahead of Haas. Like I say, that's I think Crew and Channel said a result that could be worth $10 million. $10 million in the championship, which is why I get really annoyed when people say on Twitter, journalists say things like, oh, 6 races left and they're all dead rubber. They're pointless now. They're not pointless at all. They are big money races for teams in the midfield. I like to just every now and again, and this is why I like to go through the field when I do the reactions, because I like to just remind people that whilst, yes, the championship is the thing that most people watch for, a lot of people watch for, there are 19 other drivers out there and 9 other teams, and particularly in the Constructors' Championship, every single position is worth a lot of money. So there's a lot of reasons to keep tuning in between now and the end of the season. If you don't want to, that's fine, but that's my take on that. There are a lot of reasons to keep watching, and that battle with what could be a battle now between Williams, Alfa Romeo, and Haas for millions of dollars is a big one. And can McLaren catch Ferrari? That's going to be worth millions of dollars. And you've got the wind tunnel time to think of. So lots of stuff there, but it's good money for them. Bottas, I'm sorry, Valtteri, I have no notes for. He had one of those races where he kind of was. I try to explain this the best I can what I mean, but where the TV's watching a lot of action and Bottas is either in the background or he's in the foreground. He's in there somewhere, but kept it clean and tidy, drove really, really nicely. Pace was decent and got himself some nice points at the end. And Zhou Guan Yu, like I say, I did write down nice move around the outside of Logan Sargent on at turn 1, lap 26 for P9. He was running P7 at one point, pitted on the end of lap 52. For New Softs and rejoining 12th place. So he has benefited, I have to say. He has benefited from penalties there for Gasly, Perez and Stroll, but he was still running very nicely. His pace was good towards the end as well, and he could have challenged for maybe tail end of the points, potentially. I think he was probably more likely to be around 11th place anyway, but I still think he deserves the points today for his drive, or he earned the points for his drive. So, good defending against Perez. Yes, indeed, Elijah. So good stuff from Alfa Romeo. Where did we get to? I always get confused when we get teams like Alfa Romeo really high. It feels like I should be finishing, but I think we've got a few more teams just yet. Williams. Yes, it will be Williams, won't it? Great drive from Alex Albon again, really, largely. Or great driving from Alex Albon again is what I'm trying to say. Past Tsunoda, who pitted on lap 8 for P9, which was quite an important move at that point. I know Tsunoda had pitted, but he got the move done that he needed to at that point, and that kind of opened the race up a little bit for him from what I remember, because I've not made any more notes on that one. Took the lead on lap 18 when Verstappen pitted. Will that be the first time Albon has led a race in a Williams, even for a lap? It will be, won't it? Yes, it will be in a Williams. I'm sure he did for Red Bull as well. But so that's the good stuff for him. Slow first pit stop, which cost him 3.4 seconds. And I wrote 5-second time penalty for track limits times 2 for a total of 10 seconds. Now, I should have done this before stream, so apologies. But wanted to double check this. Yes, he did. He did get 2 because it was a bit of a question mark I left. So he did get 2 for leaving track and gaining an advantage. Or multiple times, sorry, not getting an advantage. That's what they say now, don't they? So what would that have been? 10 seconds moves him, only puts him about P12, which is probably where Williams would have been anyway today on pace, but they were racing much higher than that, him and Logan Sargent at one point. They were in the points. So that's what I'm saying by good driving from Albon again this weekend, but I've got nothing else to say really on Albon this season. He's really impressed me. Sargent, again, I think he was doing well at one point, running 11th for the first part of the first stint, but down to 12th when Russell got past. Front left was going off on lap 11, and that was on the new mediums, which gives you some idea about the struggles on tyres. But I think generally driving well, keeping it clean. Lap times were well off Albon at times, a whole second difference on lap 25, for example. But I think he did all right overall. But then he came over the radio and said he wasn't feeling well. Team offered him the opportunity to retire if he needed to, but he stayed out for a bit longer and eventually retired on lap 41. They showed some footage of him getting out of the car, and he really did look not in a great way. Apparently a doctor from the FIA did go down to see him, see if they needed any support or any help. He said no and went and sat and cooled down in the driver room, I think, and not very well. He's not the only one. I think Lance Stroll was unwell. And I've not seen any confirmation. I will check, but I have seen some people talking about Ocon throwing up in his helmet. I'm going to go. The reason I've gone quiet is I'm just going to double check that one, because I'm not sure if it is absolutely confirmed. And we'll just see. Ocon said the toughest race of my career, but P7 with a couple of amusing photos. Fair enough. Ocon told his team over the radio that he was sick in his helmet on lap 15. He somehow finished 7th. So well done. So it was confirmed in an interview as well. So well done, Ocon, for getting through that. Usually if I'm sick, lovely image, I know. I'm in bed for the day and it's like, oh, I'm going to die. Oh, it's over. And then Esteban Ocon just casually drives a race in that heat and finishes P7. So different animal, these Formula One drivers, I'm telling you. So great stuff. There is an update, by the way, on the Williams drivers from Chris Medland. Literally just tweeted it. It says Sargent was treated for intense dehydration, exacerbated by flu-like symptoms. Earlier in the week, and has since been cleared by the medical centre. Albon suffered from acute heat exposure. Has also now been assessed and cleared. So I'm going to read that again because apparently I've got an inability to read today. Sargent was treated for intense dehydration made worse by flu-like symptoms earlier in the week and has since been cleared by the medical centre. Alex Albon suffered from acute heat exposure, has now been assessed and cleared. So that's an update on the Williams drivers. Clearly, it was too hot. In fact, Philip Horton actually also, while I'm on Twitter, just to let you know, saying there are a couple of reasons why this has been seen as one of the toughest races. So Qatar is already hot anyway, but humidity was high and not far off Singapore. Tyre rules meant that drivers were pushing like quali lap after lap at high energy track with high speed turns. No virtual safety cars or safety cars other than that early one in the race. So I was going to come to this later actually about the fact that we've got drivers out there pushing at, like I say, like they put it there, qualifying laps, because they've got to try and keep going with these tyres, and they've got to stop so often, and that's kind of just made everything worse. The positive is that next year Qatar is much later in the year. It's sort of around end of November time, so it's a bit later, so it should be cooler. But it feels today and this weekend like everything's kind of built into the perfect storm almost, and it was just too hot out there today, and I can see it being something that's discussed in a meeting with the FIA drivers, FOM, before the next one, and just saying, look, if we get to that point, what do we do? But I suppose the counter to that is, in an ideal situation, we'll not be in a position again where drivers have got to do that on their tyres. Hopefully, Pirelli and the FIA will find the time to inspect a new track. And the curbs on it. I know they weren't to know for sure these things were going to happen, but maybe that's something I'll look into. But I'm not. I think we have to just remember that the tyre issue has added to the problems today. If we'd had another safety car, or if drivers were able to have that lull that we see in races, probably wouldn't have been as big of an issue. Yeah, Greg, that's a good point. The sprint probably didn't help either. So that's possibly. Do you know what, Stein? Thank you so much. I was gonna double check that in the stats after the stream, and I was gonna tweet it, so I don't need to now. I can say it. Stein says Albon technically didn't lead a lap today. Was overtaken before the line in the pits, sadly. So officially, Albon didn't lead a lap, but deep down inside, we all know that he did really. He did really. We'll still give him it, but officially, he won't get that as a lap. So. I've seen a couple of people take Freeze's approach, saying scratching Qatar off won't find opposition from me. It's a fun track to drive if you've done it on the F1 game, which I'm selling this week because I've been on it once in about 3 months. Fair enough. But so it's a fun track to drive. It's very much a MotoGP track, and it's not a track that lends itself to great F1 racing. But then again, we still go to tracks like Monaco every year, so there's an argument there. But I'm not a big fan of the Qatar track, honestly. I think there's probably better places we could go, better racetracks. But I don't know what the situation is. We'll move on in a second, but I don't know what the situation is with this, because I thought we were supposed to be temporarily at Lusail and then moving on to somebody else. Somebody? Yes, we're going to race on somebody, onto another track, I thought, but apparently that's looking less likely now. A bit like Jeddah. We're supposed to be racing at Jeddah for a temporary length of time and then moving on to another track in Saudi Arabia, and that's not going to happen, is it? So there you go. Moving on. So, yeah, great stuff from Albon, generally speaking. A shame about the penalties, but I think probably 12th place-ish is where he would have ended up. So 13th isn't terrible. But I'm not going to slam him too hard if he has an off weekend every now and again, because he's had a great season. Logan Sargent as well. Get well soon as well to all the drivers who are feeling a bit rough. It sounds like it's dehydration. So lots of fluid, lots of rest. They'll be fine, I'm sure, and ready for COTA in a few weeks. A couple of weeks, actually. Haas, Hulkenberg, a bit of a brain fast at the start. Incorrect starting position. He pulled into Sainz's vacant grid spot. That's instantly going to be slam dunk, 10-second time penalty. He got that one. That compromised his race. Half put as well. Really nice move around the outside of Tsunoda on lap 6 at turn 1. So that was fun to see, but didn't see a lot of Hulkenberg, as we tend to not see much of Haas's generally. But yeah, a bit of a moment at the start, which he took responsibility for. He said over the radio, sorry guys, that's my mistake. So not going to go down too hard on that one. Should know better, but I'm not going to pretend that I'd be able to get one of these cars in the right grid slot, even with all the stuff pointing around and everything else going on and playing with things on the steering wheel. It's, these things happen. It's not quite Fisichella parking across the back of the grid in Sepang a few years ago. Please don't say how long it is, but a few years ago. But it was still a bit of a moment. We've seen it a few times, actually, haven't we, in recent years. Magnussen, I've got no notes on whatsoever. 14th place for him. I feel like he was racing quite nicely, but I was listening to his team radio afterwards, and I think he was a little bit frustrated about a few things, and I think he was pushing hard because he felt like Albon was going to get a bigger penalty, or they could take the fight there, or they were fighting for something more, and it didn't really work out. I don't know what was going on. I'm going to see if I can find some quotes from him, because there was something on the radio they were saying afterwards that he sounded frustrated about, and the team was saying it's not your fault, it was on our end. So whether they've made a mistake in lap time calculation, I don't know. It's a weird one. So let's see what they say. So K-Mag says, it seemed a lot hotter today than any other race I've done. As I'm reading it like it's a kid's story. We had a positive day, although not from a Constructors' Championship perspective. We lost a position, which is very disappointing. I'll stop. We get an upgrade next race, and we're all very happy about that. We're not expecting a miracle for the first race, but there's still positives to look forward to. So nothing really in there that sums that up. Nico Hulkenberg, I realised before I stopped. But you can't reverse, of course, and the damage was done, so that was obviously a big mistake from me today. Conditions were very extreme. The heat, the humidity, the pace was incredibly high. The new asphalt, so I think we're all feeling it. And Gunther Steiner says the end of this spec car ended worse than it started. Ouch. So we're thankful to see the end of it, but today was also not a good day. We'll come back in Austin with the upgrade and hopefully it works. We're not sitting and waiting for the end of the season. We'll work hard until the end of the season. So nothing actually there to say. I'm just going to quickly scroll through and see if there's anything in their tweets, but it doesn't look like it. But he just sounded a bit annoyed. So let me know. If you know, let me know when we get to Q&A and I'll come back to that one, but I'm not sure there will be anything there. And AlphaTauri, Tsunoda was involved in some scraps. Like I say, I already talked about a couple of the overtakes and battles he was in. So was quite racy today. P15. Liam Lawson, not his weekend is how I'm going to word that. But I think it's unlikely AlphaTauri and Red Bull are going to be thinking too much about this weekend with Liam Lawson. I think they're pretty happy with what he did in the previous 4. So I'm not concerned as a Liam Lawson fan about him there at all, based on one weekend. First time at the track, difficult conditions, first sprint weekend for him, the tyre situation, a lot to deal with. But he was, I think he said over the radio afterwards, the car felt like it was on a knife edge and he couldn't really drive it consistently and couldn't really take it to the edge and take it to the limit. So that was where he was struggling a little bit today. So that's a shame. Would have been nice to see him, no offense to Yuki, would have been nice to see him make it 5 out of 5 with Yuki, or 4 really. I still don't count Monza, but yeah, I'll keep an eye out for press releases there. But no penalties as far as I know for Tsunoda or anything. Nothing for Liam Lawson. So just a day where AlphaTauri didn't have the pace they needed for points, but I'm sure Tsunoda was involved in lots of scrapping, so it wasn't like it was a quiet day for Tsunoda, which is good stuff. And we'll keep an eye on the FIA page as well As always, if I have forgotten anything, you can throw them at me at Q&A and I'll give you a view on that. I wanted to get through the field, though, relatively quick. It took me an hour, mind, but we got there in the end, which is absolutely fine. And again, apologies for the erming and the being a little bit lost today, just a bit warm in here and a bit not 100% myself today, so not quite again to the point of the drivers. But driver of the day, Oscar Piastri got official driver of the day. Who are you going with? One surname. I'll give you all a shout out as well. And while you're doing that, if you could leave a like, that'd be massively appreciated. 441 of you here, 105 likes so far. So please do leave a like and don't forget to subscribe as well. Possibly, because you know what the channel's like. Possibly nothing this week coming up. I might do something. We'll see. Depends what's going on at home. But next week or the week after, really now, isn't it? Austin, followed by Mexico, followed by Brazil, week off, Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi. So lots of racing coming up. So please do subscribe if you're new and don't forget to drop a like and let me know your driver of the day in the chat. And like I say, we'll do Q&A after this for 15 minutes or so, and then we will call it a day there. I've got to be a little bit shorter today, unfortunately, so I can't do a full 2-hour stream, I'm afraid. So I did say yesterday. So, but yeah, and if I forgot anything, throw it at me, and I'm quite happy to answer it. So, Del says Russell, Vesk says Russell, Michael says Piastri, Henry says Russell or Zhou. I think Zhou's a fair shout. Ayinka says Russell. AJ, we'll come to that in a minute, mate. Kalian says Piastri. Paid Quart says Russell and Zhou. Suffering Addict says Russell. Piastri for Greg. Kaori says Russell. Fanta Boy 15 says Hamilton for helping out Piastri's race. Fair enough. Daniel says Lando watching his driver cam on F1 TV was rhythmic and soothing. Great overtakes too. Interesting. Robert, hey Robert, good to see you, mate. C54 says science, laughing of course. No worries, Freeze. Thank you for coming along, mate. Take care and hopefully see you for Austin. Pascal says Joe and Bottas, obviously. I'm sure you're pretty happy with today and chuffed for you as well, mate. Nick Service says Russell. Vesk says Lewis. Fair enough. Thank you, Camping with I appreciate that. I paused my game to like and comment. I know how hard that can be sometimes, so I appreciate that one. Bottas best race by him so far this season, says Otso. Wow, that sent me high. There you go. Thank you very much. Free says Russell. The Max says Stoff, of course, but Bottas otherwise. Thank you very much. Oscar for Alfarius. I've butchered that. I'm sorry. Who is Muppet of the day, says Cited Candace. There you go. That's a question for another day. Munro says Piastri or Pastry. My account dies, says Piastri. Russell or Norris, says Logan. Dimitri says Verstappen driver of the day, Piastri driver of the weekend. Russell for saving Perez, says Amar. Chris says Russell. Robert says Piastri driver of the weekend. Yeah, my chat's crashed. Sorry, hang on. There we go. Yeah, so I think I would say that's a good mix there of Piastri, couple for Verstappen, but Piastri, Zhou, Bottas and Russell seem to be the ones that people have gone for there. For me, it's tricky because Verstappen was faultless today. And you know how I like a faultless drive. The problem is if I give Verstappen driver of the day for being faultless, I have to give him it every bloody week. So I feel like the Verstappen driver of the day, Piastri driver of the weekend was a great shout, whoever that was. I think that's a really good shout. But if I can't pick Verstappen, it is hard not to say Piastri. Really did a good job. P2 today. I think he would have been P2 even if the Mercs hadn't have had the incident because the pace was definitely there. Good job to fend off Norris as well. Or not fend him off, but you know what I mean, to do enough, because if he's any slower, then the team are telling him to swap position. But I think Russell's got to get a nod. He's got to get a nod, because I think whatever you think about that Turn 1 incident, I don't think he takes any blame at all. He's come back really well. There must be damage on that car somewhere as well. So, yeah. Cited Canvas says Verstappen was in a class of 1. Piastri was best of the rest. Yeah. It's hard not to give it to Verstappen. I'm also in quite a pedantic mood. So technically, driver of the day is Verstappen because he finished first, but that's really boring and me being pedantic. But yeah. Henry says Norris wasn't allowed to attack. They were never going to let him pass since there wasn't a threat from behind, despite the excuses they used to justify keeping him behind. If Norris cruised up to the back of Piastri and is clearly 2 seconds a lap quicker, they would have swapped them over. In fact, they would have had to, because Norris would have breezed past. So I get your point, Henry. I absolutely do, but I disagree. I think if Norris was astronomically quicker, they'd have made the switch. But he wasn't. He was quicker, but he wasn't not by enough to be upsetting the team and doing that. So Max Driver of the Year, so he's not included. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll leave it there. So if you've got any questions, throw them at me. Oh, sorry, I'll try that again. If you've got any questions, throw them at me, not literally, and I will answer a few for the next few minutes before we wrap up this evening. I will keep an eye out for some press releases, and I'll keep an eye as well on the FIA to see if there is any announcement. I think it's just Lewis Hamilton we're waiting on, isn't there, for him crossing the track, and hopefully have some quotes. I'd like a quote from Bottas, and I'd like a quote from Leclerc if possible. So I'm going to keep an eye out for those two specifically, because I didn't say a lot about Ferrari either, but they had one of those races where there wasn't really an awful lot to say. I'll just go check his Twitterer and see what he's saying. Robert says this race was boring. The 3-stopper was super confusing. I touched on the 3-stopper a bit earlier. I said that at least, you know, FOM with the graphics was at least trying to explain things to people a little bit. So I think that helped having, again, driver X has to pit by lap Y. I think that helped. Otherwise, I think it would have been really crazy. I mean, I tried to keep track of it. I had the Pirelli graphic open. I was trying to keep track of who was doing what on what tyre, and in the end, I was sort of like, oh, whatever. I kind of gave up and just followed it and just tried to keep on top of it the best I could. Stein Van Dorn says, Sargent, for taking a tough decision like that, don't think it's easy to choose to retire. He wanted to stay out, didn't he? He fought to stay out, or wanted to stay out, and they left it to him. So, and I think James Vowles made a good point to Sky. He's got a duty of care, hasn't he, as the team boss? He needs to say, you know, you need to pit. But it's a shame, because he was doing all right up to that point, and I'm not, you know, he wasn't amazing. Of course he wasn't, but he was doing a decent job today. I think he was having quite a smooth, tidy race. So it's a shame that that affected him to that extent where he had to retire. So I do feel sorry for him. Mr. Bungle says, how is 3 stops worse than 1? Problem is the mandated length. I love multiple stops, but they shouldn't mandate anything, make the tyre softer. I agree with Mr. Bungle. It's just it's not the stops. It is the, I said at the start, actually, it's the mandated length, which didn't work. But I get the softer tyres argument, but I don't like it. It's just a personal thing. I'm not a fan. I like multiple stop races, but I'm not a fan of multiple stop races that are forced to be multiple. Does that make sense? Not really. So like today we had the mandated stints. That's forced. That's not organic, if you like. It's not happening because it's exciting. It's happening because it has to. Back in a few years ago, Pirelli, when their tyres would fall apart after 7 seconds, I wasn't a fan of that, because that felt a little bit forced, a little bit fake. So I don't like that. I'd much rather... the best races for me are the races that are marginal 1 or 2 stop. So those races where you can make a 1 stop work, but it's really marginal. And sometimes if you do 2 stops, you're going to come out better than a 1 stopper because you've got the pace on the tyres and you can use it. And then again, you can translate that to a 3 stopper as well. Those marginal ones, that for me is quite exciting, and it adds a bit of strategy intrigue. And it's, yeah, I know tyre management isn't for everybody, but it's part of F1. So, Sack Perez ASAP says Drifty 488. I don't think they'll be sacking him. I think he'll stay. For 1 more year, but I'm not going to get into Perez. We've talked about Perez a lot on this channel over the last few weeks. I know it's probably one of the only interesting stories in the driver market at the moment, but we'll do that another day. We'll do a proper gossipy one. I might do a midweek stream coming up before much longer, and we'll just sit like this, like we do on a Saturday, but in midweek, and we can just talk, just a big Q&A maybe. You just say, Sean, what do you think of this? And I go, leave me alone. I don't want to make a decision, or something like that. Maria says it's not organic exactly, not quite like Button in Canada in 2011, winning with 6 pit stops. How many of those were penalties as well? Oh, that race. Oh, that was hard as a Vettel fan on that final lap, but I'll always appreciate what Buster did that day. That was absolutely incredible. Who takes the Williams seat, says Robert. Mick, question mark. I don't know, Williams. I don't know what to say, because the feeling is that they don't want to loan a driver in, like a Lawson or a Mick, as you've said there, a Mick Schumacher, because they want something a bit more long-term. But if they do replace Sargent now, they're going to have to bring somebody on loan, because there isn't really anybody available. They're going to have to loan a Drugovich or loan a Mick Schumacher or loan a Liam Lawson. And that's the problem. And this is what's throwing me about next year. Williams are thinking long-term, but next year's driver market is so chaotic and so many drivers are coming up to the end of their contracts and they become available. I said it yesterday, people probably laughed at it, but Perez to Williams, if Williams don't want him, if Red Bull don't want him, and Williams want a driver with experience to go alongside Alex Albon, or a bit more long-term, a few years that they can get out of him, and Perez wants to stay on the grid, there's worse places to go for him. It would be a bit of a step back, but step out of the spotlight and somewhere like that might not be a bad place for Perez. I don't think he would. But that was just something I was throwing at yesterday. But you've got so many drivers up for grabs next year. Do you stick with Logan Sargent for another year and give him a chance, bearing in mind he is a Williams rookie and bearing in mind they admit that he came in a year too early? Or do you just loan somebody for a year, knowing that you've got so many options next year in the driver market? Williams are one of the fascinating seats for next season, but I think the driver market next year, it won't be as boring as this year's has been, definitely. So I think Sargent's a better and quicker driver than we're seeing in Formula One, but I've never rated him as highly as I have other drivers, for example. So it's a tricky one, because they could. That's a good shout from Neil there. They could snipe up Porsche. I suspect Sauber Audi Sauber, Alba, whatever you want to call them. They might be keen to keep hold of him there. Pascal says, do you think Sauber will get 7th place in the Constructors? It is only a 7-point gap now. It's funny, actually, Pascal. I think I said a couple of weeks ago that Williams should be safe. I think there's a chance for Alfa, but if I'm looking at the pace of that Williams at the tracks coming up versus the Alfa Romeos, I think Williams will have enough to hang on to that. But I think they'll do enough to hang on to P8. I think they will beat Haas now, but I don't think they're going to have enough to beat Williams, because it's only 7 points, but 7 points towards the back end of the grid is a lot of points, really. So I'd like to see Williams there. No disrespect to you, Pascal, or to Salva. Just also some interesting rumours flying around at the moment about Audi and Sauber. There was and I will get to the clarification in a moment. Apparently there was it was Radio Le Mans, I believe, had reportedly said that Audi were going to withdraw before they'd even started, but they've since clarified, saying that they did not say Audi are going to withdraw, just that they are evaluating it, and the decision was made at the end of the season, which they've kind of come out to clarify it, which I'm pleased they did. But now that's put more of an alarm. If I'd have read that article, Audi not coming to F1, I'd have gone, oh yeah, whatever. But now they've come out and clarified and said they're evaluating it, this Radio Le Mans thing. It's like, that's now raised more questions than it's answered. So if that's actually a thing, I mean, let me try and find that. I think Alex Brundle was the one that retweeted it, so I'll just go and find Alex Brundle. I can read you their clarification, I guess you'd call it. So Eve Hewitt from Radio Le Mans said, to be absolutely clear, we have not said that Audi are withdrawing from the F1 project. We have said it is being reviewed with no decision due until after the end of the F1 season. That was said in context of a broader conversation about adding teams to the F1 paddock. So it's that clarification has raised more questions than it's answered for me. So this, if you want me to speculate for a second, this situation, if Audi were to make that decision, there's a team there that Andretti might fancy having a word with again. Because if that were to happen, they might be able to buy the Audi stake in that team a little bit cheaper. If Audi don't want to invest in F1, I think Audi will. I think they will. I think this is a bit of speculation. I think the term reviewed is doing quite a lot of heavy lifting here. It might just be they're reviewing how much of Sauber they want to buy. They might just be reviewing how much. They might just be like, actually, do you know what? We're going to stick with the stake we've got, and we're just going to give you an engine. It might just be that. They might just be maybe stepping back a little bit, or they might be reviewing that they actually want to put more into Formula One. So we don't know what this decision will be, but I thought it was worth a mention because I touched on it earlier. It's a story worth keeping an eye on. But I was thinking about it before the stream. If they were to pull the plug on Sauber, Andretti Sauber, not a bad idea. So yeah, that's my read, Mickey. Someone has misspoken and the press have run with it. But then what I'm saying is that the clarification that's come out about what was said has now raised a bigger concern than the report was. If I'd have seen that report in, I don't know, Planet F1 or Crash F1, for example, I'd have just scoffed at it. But then when the people that said it came out and clarified it and went, well, it's just that they're reviewing it, I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. There might be something here. There might not be. It depends what you think about review. Reviewed doesn't necessarily mean negative. Apparently Sauber have denied that rumour, so thank you, Paid Quartz. That'll put that to bed if that's correct. I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying that's but it's just an interesting story, and I think sometimes, you know, a story gets run within the press, as Mickey says there. Someone misspoke, and then they come out and clarify, and it can make a situation worse, like I do, pretty much. But yeah, Sauber Andretti or Andretti Sauber, not a bad idea, is it, if it were to happen? But I still think, I said it months ago. If Andretti can't get on the grid, I'm not doing it again. We did this yesterday. If Andretti can't get on the grid as an 11th team, I think there's a deal there to be done with Alpine. I really do. I said that a few months ago that they've got the agreement more or less with Renault in place, I think. So why not Andretti Renault instead of Alpine work together? I'm sure Ryan Reynolds will be up for that one and his crew. I think potential deals with Sauber, and I still think AlphaTauri could be up for grabs. I don't know. I don't know if Red Bull would sell them, but if the price is right, everyone's got a price. That's it. So yeah, I'm pretty sure, just to confirm, Audi will be here in 2026, and we don't need to worry. But I thought I'd mention it anyway, just because it was an interesting. You know what I'm like? I spot something interesting, I talk about it. Some people think I'm saying it's a legit thing in comments later, but it's not. It's just something that intrigued me, and it's always good to talk to other F1. That's the point of this channel. I'm talking to you guys about things that are spot on F1. So a few more questions, then it will have to be around about the 90-minute mark today, I'm afraid, which will be a 5-minute countdown. So I've got about 15 minutes left because I need to get off a little bit earlier today. Partner has work tomorrow, early start. So yeah. No one remembers Rich Energy, says Brad. Probably a good thing, to be fair. Why do Andretti even want into F1 at this point if it's going to be so hard and expensive? They're racers, and I think that's where they want to be, Vesk. Again, I'm not going to get into Andretti too much because we did it yesterday. But again, if I do a little Q&A at some point, 90 minutes on a Wednesday, may even try and find a guest to help me with it, would be nice. Not that anyone wants to come on these anymore. It's the race reactions I struggle with, basically. Yeah. Which, by the way, it's not a complaint. I need to just make that point immediately. I understand that after 2 hours of watching Formula One, especially content creators and journalists, content creators want to get their content out. I don't like feeling like Will, for example, who sometimes does these with me. I don't like feeling like I'm rushing him with his comedy review. Journalists have got things to write up. People aren't available after races that soon. So for another hour and a half to 2 hours with me talking nonsense. So that's why these will be moving next year to Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday after a race weekend. I haven't decided which. Probably Wednesday. Wednesday might become guaranteed stream day at the end of the year. Maybe sooner. So do you think Andretti Cadillacs is that serious? I don't see why that announcement wasn't met with the team with Chevy and IndyCar. It says Moray, that's one. Let you guys discuss that in chat. Again, I'm not going to get into Andretti again today. Don't get me wrong, I love your voice, but for discussions it would be great. Yeah, I prefer discussions, but I also appreciate that this is also my channel and that, I need to be the one taking responsibility for these. So I heard that Rich Energy was taking to court for fraud, I think, just after they left F1. Don't know, Mickey, honestly. I literally don't keep up with what is it Josh Ravel calls him? Bad Santa? I don't keep up with Bad Santa at all. Definitely not. Any other questions? Ideally, related to the race, but it can be anything F1 related. I'll just have a quick check on Twitter again while you guys get those in. See if we've got anything from any teams. We've got something from Aston Martin. Alonso had an issue with the seat being very hot from lap 15, made it quite challenging. Competitive though, and I'm happy to finish 6th after a few weekends where we didn't have the pace. Yeah, nothing there really that we didn't kind of know. Disappointed not to take any points away. This is Lance Stroll having raced so hard in such physically demanding conditions. Temperatures we faced out there were extreme, more so than any other event. And there are lots of tight corners. So you're constantly battling the G-forces. Positives to take away though. Car had more pace today and the team made some good strategy decisions with the regulated tyre constraints. Team in the garage did a great job in such challenging conditions too. So nothing really there. Again from Lance Stroll, but always nice to see what the drivers are saying afterwards. I was hoping for a Charles Leclerc quote before I wrapped up. And something on Alfa Romeo, but I don't seem to be able to find anything, which is a little bit annoying. Probably won't get to it then today. I'll keep an eye out while we're just doing this one. Brad says Chamber ? You hear from him? No, not for a long time now. I think the last time I heard from him would have been February, March. I think so. That's been quite a long time. No. I just try to think if I heard of... No, nothing. Not heard anything. I know he's okay, if you follow me, because I've seen Hazel's talked about him on Twitter and conversation they've been having, so I know he's okay. But I've not heard anything, which is a shame. Did you see Stroll staggering to the ambulance? Says right. No, I didn't. Is it Rifle? No, I didn't. He's not said anything his thing, so... Yeah, do you like the rocket-powered Mohawk, says Moray. I have, and I mean this with the greatest of respect. Is that an F1 YouTuber? I have no idea who that is. That's not me being an arse or anything like that. I just don't know who he is, or she is, because I don't watch any F1 YouTube, which is really awful. But I've said this so many times. When I finish streaming or making a video or had a day watching F1, I don't think, I must go and watch some F1 content. I sort of think I just want to watch City Skylines videos or something like that, just put in the background, do other things. So, yeah, but I haven't, but I'll go and have a look afterwards. I'll have a look. It's really nice to know that the F1 YouTube community is getting so much bigger. Not just on the content creator side, but also like people like you guys coming to watch us all. It's so nice because it's like a little... F1 still feels like quite a niche sport to follow, but it was always really niche when I was growing up. So it's nice just to see so many creators and so many fans coming together to talk about it. And I said it in Tomo's podcast. There's room for everybody as well. So if you're an F1 fan and you want to sit and talk nonsense for 2 hours on a Sunday after a race, go for it. It's definitely do it if you're up for it. Plenty of room for everybody. In a fun twist, who was a driver of the day for you today in the negative sense? Mine's Gasly, sadly, but I am okay if you don't want to do that, says Red Raven. Who was a driver of the day in a negative sense? So I think somebody said, what's the phrase? It wasn't moron of the day. That's really harsh. It was I can't remember what it was, but it was something along those lines. But I don't know. It's an interesting point. My driver of the day was Verstappen, I think I settled on in the end. I'm not really sure where I went with that one. But in terms of on a negative, probably... I don't know. That's a hard one. I don't know, Red Raven. I'll let others do that one. That's me copping out. I'm copping out. I'll admit to that one. I'm just not trying. Maybe Perez. Yeah, Perez is a good shout. For most disappointing is a good one. Donkey of the day. That was it, Kaori. Thank you. Yeah, no, Perez could be a good shout for a disappointing one today, but yeah. Highly recommend Driver 61. Fantastic content, says Nick Surface. Peter Windsor is good. Says Brad. Peter's a journalist, isn't he? Does he do content as well on YouTube? This is how far I am. It's terrible, I know. I really should keep up on it. I really should. Sack Russell and bring in the winning combo of Lewis and Bottas, and that let's make Mercedes great again, says ADL. Some drivers faced in the medical centre, according to Lando via ESPN. Really, it was dehydration, I'd imagine. Definitely. Just on that Stroll thing, he was exhausted getting out of the car. He went to the ambulance, and that was in the Parc Fermé, and hung through the window. Oh, Jesus. Sounds like it was a bad one. Again, you've got to remember it's the kind of perfect storm, isn't it? It's hot and humid, pushing really hard, lots of laps and all that business. G-forces, relentless track. It's all sort of come together and boiled over, hasn't it? So, but next year it should be cooler. Should be. Flash forward to next year, we're talking about the heat being worse, but yeah. Red Raven says, pardon my cynicism. For disappointment, you'd have to have some expectations first. Fair enough. Yeah, any questions? I'm umming and erring a bit, and I'm sort of reading your comments and that, but if not, then we will wrap it. I hate finishing these early, but I've got to tonight, so... And next year it's in December, apparently. I thought it was end of November, but because I think it's penultimate race. It will be, December. I'm going to check those thingies one more time, just on the quotes and things. If you've got anything else, if not, I am going to wrap up today. We were quite long yesterday, weren't we, with the full 2 hours plus. Does Perez win in Mexico or in the US races, says Robert. I don't know if he will. I'd like to see it, though. I'd like to see Checo win Mexico. I kind of touched on it yesterday. The scenes when he got a podium were insane. So imagining that for a win would be... Oh, the scenes would be incredible. I would love to see that. So I hope he can. Perez said a weekend when nothing worked out for us. First of all, I want to thank my entire Red Bull team very much for getting my car ready on time. We have the best mechanics in the world. Let's think about the closing. There are still 5 very important races left, and we are going to return. And then obviously goes on to speak in his language there. Magnussen, P14 in Qatar, unbelievably hard and hot. We'll get an upgrade for the next race. Let's move on to Texas, which is just a summary of what he'd said before, but nothing really from anybody. They're all very quiet today, which is a shame. I was hoping for something from Charles Leclerc and Valtteri Bottas, but it's not. I'll tell you when it'll arrive. The moment I hit stop streaming. It always happens. So there you go. Is Piastri the best rookie since Max? Asks James L. I think we asked this the other week. I couldn't think of anybody... Norris was pretty solid it was very good in his rookie season. Leclerc was very good in his rookie season. Somebody else then, the name's completely gone out of my head. Russell was very good in his rookie season, definitely. So he's in that conversation, but I think I'll wait till the end of the season to totally call that one. I'll call that one. Sorry, I was reading ice and said cool. Yeah, that's... Camino says, what happens with Sargent? He was unwell in the car. The heat got to him. I'll just read that again, actually, for anyone who missed it. It was from Chris Medland, wasn't it? I said over on Twitter, just to confirm the situation with Williams. Sargent was treated for intense dehydration. That was made worse by flu-like symptoms earlier in the week, and he has since been treated and cleared at the medical centre. Albon suffered from acute heat exposure, has also now been assessed and cleared. We also have a decision, by the way, from the FIA very quickly on Lewis Hamilton. It's not much. Well, it is to him, but don't expect grid drops or anything like that. So they've corrected that as well. So hang on. So they're causing a collision corrected. No further action, so the stewards decided it was a racing incident, and he got a reprimand, non-driving, and a fine of €50,000, 25,000 of which is suspended for the remainder of the season on condition there is no further breach of similar nature. After crashing out of the race in lap 1, the driver of car 44, Lewis Hamilton, abandoned his car in the gravel and ran back to the pits. He thereby crossed the track that was live at this time and reached the inside edge of the track just seconds before George Russell arrived at high speed after exiting the pits. He then continued to walk alongside the track until finally exiting the track. Hamilton was very apologetic in the hearing, realised the situation could have been very dangerous for him as well as the drivers approaching. Stewards reinforced the fact that crossing a live track can cause extremely dangerous situations, and the drivers have to be very cautious about that. In addition to imposing a significant fine, which is suspended in parts, the stewards also reprimanded the driver, bearing in mind that receiving a certain number of reprimands during a season will draw a significant driving penalty in accordance with Article 16.2. 18.2, yeah, 18.2, that didn't sound right, 18.2 of the FIA sporting regulations. So, a hefty fine, from our point of view, a hefty fine and a reprimand, non-driving one, and no further action on the incident at turn 1. Just let me read this one as well. We know Hamilton's taking responsibility, so it's kind of pointless getting into this too much, but the argument could be made that 44 was predominantly at fault. The stewards, taking into account that the incident happened in lap 1 and several cars were involved, determined that the incident is considered a typical lap 1 turn 1 incident, and no driver is wholly at fault. Therefore, no further action is taken. Okay, cool. So that's the decision on that one. Like I say, Hamilton's taking responsibility, so there's no need to go over all of that one again. But it's a reprimand, a fine for his crossing the track, and no further action on the incident, which had already been decided, by the way. But I think I missed a super chat, but yeah, it's only just come through. It's just, yeah. Apologies to Not From 63rd. I'm so sorry. Your super chat has just come through to me on the thingy. It says possibly the best sprint of the year. If you're still against them, you're just holding back the sport. I can't wait till the sprints every week. So thank you very much for your super chat. I disagree. I think they had for call to the weekend, really. But each their own. If you enjoy them, I'm happy for you. Yeah. But thank you very much for your super chat, mate. I do appreciate your support there. It's all about opinions, isn't it? So I think that's pretty much it. I'm just going to have a quick scroll through the chat while I was reading those. There could have been something. If you want some YouTube to switch your brain off to, I'd highly recommend Ordinary Sausage. I will make a mental note of that, Maury. Thank you very much. Las Vegas will be the most tepid Grand Prix ever. I think that somebody said to me about 10 degrees, something like that. So that could be an interesting one. So they'll certainly have cooled down by the end of that one, that's for sure. Plenty of great rookie seasons. Villeneuve and Hamilton almost won titles in their rookie seasons. Yep. Absolutely, Nick. I think they were talking about sort of the last 15 or recent history rather than overall. But yeah, I mean, Villeneuve not far off the title at all. Neither was Hamilton, was he? That tyres in China moment. Oh, that'll always haunt him, I'm sure. They should have had a special race for this kind of conditions. It's a good point from Sighted Canvas. Maybe some technology there that can be explored. Where does the money go? To the FIA or the track, says Waldo. The FIA is a not-for-profit organisation. I think that's the correct term. So any fines or anything like that, they go to the FIA, but they get put into their road safety campaigns and things like that. It doesn't go in the back pocket of the FIA president or anything like that. It's a not-for-profit organisation, so it all goes back into their initiatives and things. So unless that's changed since the last time that was asked, but no, that's not correct. Heat of the moment, Lewis probably didn't care, says Nick, and Sighted Canvas says the correct outcome. Austria's sprint was better and still no fun. I say that it doesn't add a lot to a weekend. I do it to be a bit facetious at times, but it's not. I don't enjoy sprint weekends as much as I enjoy normal weekends. But it's more about the fact that the weekends don't flow right. The flow's not quite right. I'm not going to say it again. I gave how I think it should be yesterday. But I think some tweaks and it could be fine. But as it is at the moment, I don't agree. I don't also agree about holding the sport back with not having sprints. The sprints aren't necessary for the sport to move forward. They're not something that determines whether the sport moves forward or not. There are a lot of other areas it could work on to move forward, definitely. And they do it. They do it with a lot of things they do. The technology in the sport. So yeah, but we'll do that another day, definitely. But I think we are going to leave it there. Dell says Crofty had an idea the sprint quali and sprint should be on Friday before practice would make it unpredictable at least. I mean, I don't mind in case you missed it yesterday, Dell. I'll repeat it quickly now then. I think the right format for me is 90 minutes of practice, FP1 or first practice or only practice on Friday morning. Then you have sprint shootout on Friday afternoon where the cars go into Parc Ferme. You then have the sprint race on Saturday morning. The cars then come out of Parc Ferme, and then they go out for qualifying in the afternoon and go back into Parc Ferme, and then it's the race as usual on Sunday. That's how I think that would build the weekend really nicely, the crescendo of the Grand Prix, and you enable teams to make tweaks after the sprints. You're not locked in after 60 or 90 minutes of practice to one setup. And if you've gone the wrong way, yeah, all right, some would argue, well, it's tough if you've gone the wrong way. But I think that way you're allowing teams to make tweaks after the sprint if it's not quite worked. Maybe their tyre life was poor, so they think, well, hang on a minute, we need to put a bit more downforce here, or we need to take some downforce off there, or whatever, and they can do that with the setups and then perfect that for qualifying, and then that might give us an even better race because teams have had a chance to kind of get things right. So I think that for me works better as a flow. As it is right now, it feels too stop-start, and that's why I struggle. That's my issue with the sprints. That is the issue. But again, we did that yesterday, so I am going to leave it. Yeah, that's another great shout. I've seen a lot of people say Red Raven, or at least have sprints on alternative layouts like the Bahrain outer loop. I've seen that people have loads have suggested that. You've got tracks where that'll work well, where you can have alternative layouts. I'm not sure if they'd be able to do it, but I think Austria and Brazil as sprints should be every year, and I would not touch them. But like you say, Bahrain outer loop is an option. If we were still going to Paul Ricard, there are 352 million layouts there that could be used. There are different layouts at Abu Dhabi as well that could have been. I don't want to sprint there at all. I really, really don't. But I'm just saying there are other tracks where you can do that. But I think Brazil and Austria leave them as they are because they are the best two sprints of the year. Not that yesterday was terrible. It was enjoyable. But again, it's just very, very stop-start. But yeah, we'll leave it there for tonight. Thank you so again. Sorry it's a little bit shorter, about half an hour shorter than usual. But I need to fly off now. So thank you so much for joining me for this one. Like I say, I will try my best next week to get something out. If I don't, though, obviously I'll be here for Aston as well, and then it's a triple header, so actually that's probably, yeah, triple header's quite a lot of content across 3 weeks, and then it's a week off, and then of course we've got the final two races, so lots still to come. So please do subscribe. Don't forget to leave a like as well. 149 likes so far, 352 of you watching. Thank you so much for your support as always, but likes, subscribes, always hugely appreciated. Thank you for the super chat tonight as well. Really do appreciate your support on that one. If you want to support the stream longer term, you can do on Patreon, link in the description. You can also help the stream and support the channel through PayPal and Streamlabs and all the stuff in the description. You can follow me as well over on social media at F1 Word and the F1 Word, so give me a follow over there for what it is worth. Like I say, back in a couple of weeks at the latest for the build up to a race that I think is one of the most criminally underrated races of the year, the US Grand Prix at Qatar. I think that track is far better than it gets credit for, and we often see some cracking racing there, so hopefully it will be fantastic. Just very quickly, sorry, Letos is coming with a very quick comment I want to read quickly. Two German motorsport magazines are also saying that Audi's F1 engagement isn't a certainty anymore. The new management was never a fan of an F1 entry. So all I'll say on that one is thank you, first of all, for the comment. Secondly, watch this space. But thank you so much for watching, everybody. And again, apologies, it's a little bit shorter. I'll try that one again. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.